Number 10. Satan's Castle, San Bernardino. Yes, this place is called Satan's Castle, and it's a no from me. Satan's Castle sits on a mountainous region that is filled with both religious and satanic lore dating back to the 19th century. There are said to be underground tunnels linking to various points of interest across the mountain, which were used during the Prohibition era. These tunnels were created mostly for transportation and smuggling booze, but also served for darker purposes. One of these tunnels is rumored to connect a Catholic church to Satan's Castle. It is said to have been the grounds for dark, ritualistic practices which included both human and animal sacrifices, along with other dark ceremonies. Not to mention, inside one of the rooms a pentagram used to be painted on the ground. Local Christians painted over it with the John 3:16 verse, but the pentagram always bled through. Definitely sounds satanic to me, and I will not be visiting there. Number 9. Preston Castle, Ione. The Preston School of Industry, also known as Preston Castle, was a reform school that opened in June 1894 and was considered one of the oldest and best known reform schools in the United States. The boys there grew their own food, raised livestock, and learned farming trades. Additionally, there was a print shop, bakery, and cobbler shop where the boys could learn skills for self-preservation in the real world. The superintendent controlled the life inside the school, and discipline was extreme. Starvation, isolation, and public paddling and lashings, and severe strategies were common at Preston. Now, this school has seen a lot of death. There are 17 men buried on the school grounds because they died there. Samuel Goins had his life ended after attempting to escape from the school. In 1950, Preston's head housekeeper, Anna Corbin, was beaten to death in the school's basement as well, and they never found out who did it. Employees and visitors believe that these young men are still haunting the school, which only closed in 1960, by the way. Those who have toured the grounds since have reported many strange sights and sounds, slamming doors, falling objects, disembodied voices, and ghostly physical contact. Number 8. Camp Pendleton, Area 41, San Diego. Camp Pendleton is a coastal Marine Corps base with a dark history. This place is divided up into sections, and Area 41 is haunted. Locks have been tampered with, furniture displaced, items gone missing, and strange noises are heard throughout the camp. Many think that this is done by one broken-hearted Marine in particular. This man was in love and had recently asked his girlfriend to marry him. After she had said yes, he thought his life was going great, but it didn't last long. The Marine was in his housing unit when his fiancée got a hold of him and told him that she was ending the relationship. He was so upset that he ended his life in a second-story room of the barracks. Now, some Marines are convinced his spirit remains in the area and haunts Area 41 in particular. A general feeling of unease is common here, and to this day, Marines claim that they hear the faint sound of a man softly humming the Jeopardy game show theme song around the grounds. I'm sorry. What? Number 7. The Hotel de Coriando, San Diego. Hotel de Coriando is a historic hotel that opened in 1888. Kate Morgan has haunted this hotel since 1892, the year she checked in and awaited the arrival of her husband. The two were traveling con artists, and not surprisingly, her husband never showed up, and 4 days later, Kate was found dead at the bottom of an outdoor staircase leading to the Coronado Beach. Today, those who check into Kate's room, which is now room 3312, have had spooky experiences to say the least. Curtains blowing even though the windows are closed, objects moved by unseen hands, murmuring sounds, and even sightings of Kate walking down the hallways and peering out the windows have all been reported. Her ghost is often seen both in the hotel and on the beach. Now, room 3519, formerly room 3502, is also haunted. Once a maid's room, it's been the site of numerous paranormal occurrences, such as objects moving around by themselves. Number 6. The Whaley House, San Diego. The Whaley House is the oldest brick structure in Southern California and was the home of Thomas Whaley and his family. At various times, it also housed Whaley's General Store, San Diego's second county courthouse, and the first commercial theater in San Diego. The house has witnessed more history than any other building in the city, and it is extremely haunted. One of the most infamous ghosts there is the spirit of Yankee Jim Robinson. Yankee Jim was hanged in the gallows where the house now stands in 1852 after being convicted of stealing horses. Thomas Whaley himself, who owned and lived in the house with his family years later, said they could hear heavy footsteps going up and down the stairs. Now visitors have reported cold spots and the feeling of their chest and throat tightening within the home. Others claim to have seen Yankee Jim too, an apparition that appears and disappears when you get too close. Today, and for many years, visitors to the house have also reported seeing Thomas. They usually see him wearing a frock coat and pantaloons standing on the second-story landing. Others have seen his wife Anna, usually floating around in the garden or the downstairs room. Her ghost, which appears white and billowy, seems to just drift about and then disappears. Number 5. Winchester Mystery House, San Jose. Now after finding out what this place is, I really want to visit here. I mean, just by the name Mystery House, it's cool. Now some backstory on the house: Sarah Winchester lived a tragic yet interesting life. She married William Wirt Winchester in 1862, who was a very wealthy man. Sadly though, her husband, mother, and father-in-law all passed away within the same year. To deal with her grief, she moved to California after gaining a large inheritance from her husband. Then on top of all of that, Sarah was being haunted by the spirits of those whose lives were ended by the Winchester rifle, which her husband's company had invented. After her husband passed away, a psychic told her to evade the spirits, she would need to move out west, buy a home, and build non-stop. She took 36 years to construct the home, and this house has 6 kitchens, 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 17 chimneys, 160 rooms, and many doors and stairs that lead to nowhere. Workers and visitors swear they hear howling at night, loud creaking, and sometimes the kitchen smells like someone is actively cooking. But regardless if you believe in ghosts or not, the house is absolutely stunning. Number 4. Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, Los Angeles. The Hollywood Roosevelt is considered to be one of the most haunted hotels in Los Angeles. It first opened its doors in 1927 and was a frequent home to Marilyn Monroe, who often stayed in the second floor cabana. Interestingly, the doors to this hotel are still open, allowing visitors to spend the night in Marilyn's suite, and some people claim to have seen Marilyn's ghost smiling and blowing kisses at them in their hotel mirrors. Hotel workers often talk about seeing the ghost of Charlie Chaplin and feel temperatures drop quickly from one room to the next. The apparition of Montgomery Clift has been blamed for patting guests' shoulders and watching maids in room 928, where he stayed for 3 months while filming From Here to Eternity. The ghost of Carole Lombard has also been spotted floating around the upper floors, and in the Blossom Room, where the first Oscars were held, 2 ghosts have been spotted, a presence of a tuxedoed man and a presence of a man in a white suit. Seems like if you want to meet a dead celebrity, the Roosevelt Hotel is the place to go. Number 3. Alcatraz, San Francisco Bay. The famous maximum security prison Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary earned a reputation as one of the most brutal and inhumane prisons in the country during its day. The strong currents around the island and cold water temperatures made escape nearly impossible, and the prison became one of the most notorious in American history. The prison closed in 1963, and the island is now a major tourist attraction. A total of 36 prisoners made 14 escape attempts, 23 were caught alive, 6 had their lives ended by guards during their escape, 2 drowned, and 5 are listed as missing and presumed drowned. Now during its 29 years in use, Alcatraz held some of the most notorious American criminals, including Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and Bumpty Johnson. Today, it's a tourist attraction that many believe to be haunted. Inexplicable events happen, like the sound of someone playing the banjo. Many believe this to be the spirit of Al Capone, who spent his last days at the prison playing a banjo in the shower room to avoid being injured in the yard. The smell of smoke, the sounds of cell doors slamming, disembodied voices, moaning, and screams have also all been reported. Number 2. Queen Mary, Long Beach. Queen Mary is a retired British ocean liner that sailed from 1936 to 1967. She sailed to the port of Long Beach, California, where she is permanently docked. The city of Long Beach bought the ship to serve as a tourist attraction, featuring restaurants, a museum, and a hotel, but claims were made that the ship was haunted. There are resident spirits, including Jackie, the little girl who haunts the first-class pool, John Petter, who was crushed by a watertight door, Senior Second Officer William Eric Stark, who accidentally drank dry cleaning fluid instead of gin, and the cook, who was baked alive by his own kitchen staff during World War II. But most arguably, the most notorious location on the ship for paranormal activity is room B340. Reports claim someone was knocking on the door in the middle of the night, bathroom lights turning on by themselves, the sink faucet turning on and off on its own, and unexplained bathroom doors shutting. Some guests have reported the covers of their bed being pulled off while asleep and waking to see a dark figure standing at the foot of the bed. There are even more stories about this place, but I don't have enough time to fit them all in. If you're really interested in Queen Mary, I say do some homework on it because it definitely gets creepier. And coming in at number 1 is the Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles. The Cecil Hotel opened in 1925 as a well-furnished hostelry frequented by respectable people, but that didn't last long. As downtown became more and more dangerous, the Cecil became a place where bad people stayed, like the Night Stalker aka Richard Ramirez and Austrian killer Jack Unterweger spent time there. The Black Dahlia was rumored to have had her last drink at the hotel bar before she turned up dead a few miles away. In 1962, Pauline Otten jumped from the 9th floor window, ending her life. That same year, Julia Moore jumped from an 8th floor window, and Helen Green from the 7th floor in 1954. The Cecil Hotel may have rebranded itself recently as the Stay on Main, but it just can't shake its reputation as a place where scary things happen. In 2013, the body of Canadian tourist Elisa Lam was found in the hotel's rooftop cistern. Her body was discovered by a hotel maintenance worker investigating complaints of flooding and low water pressure. And yes, people had been showering in and drinking that water. Ugh. And last but not least, the ghost of a boy has reportedly been photographed outside a 4th floor window. Spooky.
Number 10. The Madonna Inn. When you travel somewhere, you might want to stay in a place that is super chill and close to all the tourist traps so you can just shut your brain off and spend some money without worrying about anything for a few days. But not me. I want to go to some sketchy hole in the wall and party with the locals and wake up in a weird place and have to retrace all my steps to find my passport so I can eventually get back home. Basically, I love to live the hangover every time I travel. Well, the Madonna Inn, tucked away in San Luis Obispo, is this kind of place. This hotel has such a trippy vibe. It looks like a place that would make Tim Burton cream in his pants. I wouldn't be surprised if while staying there, instead of leaving you a chocolate on your pillow, it would just be a faded picture of Salvador Dali. This seems like the kind of place where the ghosts are always well dressed and super polite, even though they know they're dead. Number 9. The Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula. This place is known as one of the most haunted spots in California. I know I say that a lot in these videos, and I have no idea how a place becomes one of the most haunted places in California. Is there like an official board that makes these decisions, or is it based on how many times someone pees their pants from getting too drunk but then blames it on ghosts? Well, this place was built in 1911 and it was a hot spot for a minute. It was known for many celebrities coming through and it had very extravagant parties. But after the buzz passed, the Glen Tavern Inn ran into some hard times and they did what any good business owner does when things get rough. They started selling booze illegally, they opened a and started an illegal game. These guys really knew how to party. Now the building is more of a tourist attraction. Some people come there to visit to see if the ghost stories are actually real. Number 8. Peggy Sue's Dinosaur Park. Only in America can you find a place that is half diner, half dinosaur park. I feel like this is the ultimate mix of never growing up and realizing that you actually have to grow up. When Peggy Sue was a kid, she probably was like, when I grow up, I want to work at Jurassic Park. And then she grew up and was like, screw it, I'm gonna make my own Jurassic Park, but I still gotta pay rent. This is a great spot to stop if you're burning some rubber from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. You can stop at this spot to grab some greasy roadside food while also wondering how someone could afford to get a bunch of metal dinosaurs made on a diner owner's budget. It's kind of inspiring in a way. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. You can do anything you want, because there are people out there doing some crazy stuff that you don't even know about. Number 7. Salton Sea. This place literally had something similar to the entire rise and fall of a civilization. In 1905, the Colorado River flooded and filled up a nice little area in California. In the 1950s, this became a major travel destination. There was a massive lake that people would love to come to. The place was teeming with life. There were fish in the lake, babes on the beach, and hot dogs in every hand of every red-blooded American that would come through for a good time. The only problem is that the lake didn't have a runoff, so eventually it became so salty that all the fish died. And then the lake straight up evaporated. Of course, with no lake and only a bunch of dead fish lying around in the sun, everyone stopped coming. Now if you go there, the place is a straight up ghost town. All there is to see is boarded up windows and the sting of salt on your sunblock greased skin. Hey, maybe if this whole global warming thing keeps going, this place will be amazing again. Stay positive. Number 6. The International Banana Museum. Sticking around this area, one of the main tourist attractions around this dried up lake was the International Banana Museum. Honestly, this is an amazing business model. It would be pretty hard to make a banana museum in the city. There's too much going on. You're competing with major sports teams and famous bands coming through. If you put it in the middle of nowhere and you're the most interesting thing for 250 miles, you might also be one of the only bathrooms. This way people have to come visit you, even if it means they're just doing it to survive because they got lost in the desert. Also, how many things could you put in a banana museum? This one's green, this one's brown. The yellow ones are way too rare, so we just put up a picture. I kinda wanna go and just spend a bunch of money on some worthless stuff in the gift shop. I would love a shirt that says, "Why don't bananas snore?" Cause they don't wanna wake up the rest of the bunch. Number 5. The Rockahula Water Park. So I don't know if you guys know this, but California is a desert. So what is there a lot of in a desert? Well, basically everything except for living creatures and water. So you thought it was a good idea to build a water park in the middle of a desert. Where is the water gonna come from? Is the water park just supposed to get moisture out of the air like Frozone? This one just seems like a dumb idea. And that's why it went out of business in the 1960s. But you know what's even dumber? Someone spent millions of dollars trying to rejuvenate and reopen the thing in the 90s. The dude in charge was like, you know what would be a great investment? That thing that just lost millions of dollars a few decades ago. That's like someone investing in Toys R Us 20 years from now. Now what ended up happening? Well, someone slipped because it's a water park and they sued the park for millions, and that was the end of that. I would invest my retirement in classic Pokemon cars before I spent millions of dollars on a water park in the middle of the desert. Number 4. East 8 Mile Road, Stockton. More haunted places. The East 8 Mile Road is said to be one of the most haunted places in California. I bet if I said I could hear footsteps in my home, I could get on a most haunted list. I would just leave out the part that it's my roommate walking up and down the stairs. But all my sass and sarcasm aside, this place has some creepy stories about it. Apparently the road is haunted by a witch who will walk along the roadside in tattered clothes. If you drive past her and then look back for a second peek, you'll see her in your back seat. Yeah. No thanks. I know I make fun of all this haunted stuff, but the last thing I want is a witch ghost trying to hitchhike without asking. I only have one good pair of jeans, and I don't need to piss in them. Number 3. North Bloomfield Ghost Town. This town was built back in the day when people were trying to strike it rich with the gold rush. Miners from far and wide would come all over to try and live out the dream of becoming a rich man just off a bunch of rocks. I guess that's how people will look back on people who are trying to make it big off of YouTube videos. Geez, how lame all those people are gonna look. Now what ended up happening is none of the people got rich and everyone went home and probably got divorced. But then there was a second gold boom with hydraulic tools, and the second time around, people got lucky. They built a town, and of course the gold rush ended, and now all that is left is a creepy shell of a city. It's a straight up ghost town, just like the other place. All the pictures of this place look like The Village from that movie, The Village. I need to find a better way to describe things. Number 2, Mono Lake. At first glance, this place looks absolutely breathtaking. It looks like a place you could have a first date and then propose and then roll around on the beach having all in the same night. The reason I've decided to put this natural aphrodisiac on the list is because inside the lake there are bacteria that are 760,000 years old. Not only that, the bacteria that are in the lake have a string of DNA that for the longest time no one could identify. There were alien bacteria, and I'm pretty sure this is how Invasion of the Body Snatchers starts. The water in the lake was very rich in arsenic, and what scientists have found is that the bacteria in the lake used arsenic to construct the missing parts of their DNA, and that's why they were hard to identify. But people who are big into conspiracy theories think that this is proof that aliens landed down on our planet. Whoa. Number 1 on the list, the glass beach of Fort Bragg. This is probably the only time pollution has done something cool. The glass beach of Fort Bragg was caused of years and years of people throwing their glass waste into the ocean. Now all of it comes barfed out in these cool little polished pellets. People from all over the world come to the beach to try and collect them. It takes forever for the ocean to polish one of these pieces of glass, and with so many tourists coming around from the world to come and collect them, one day these things will be extremely rare. Hopefully, because I hope we stop polluting. That being said, please don't throw your glass garbage into the ocean.
Getting us scared in at number 10 is John Soden and his house in Los Angeles. It's time to brace yourselves because this story is pretty dark. Back on January 15th, 1947, a woman's body was found on this lot. Her became one of the most reported murders of the time because of the gruesome way in which her body had been found. She was surgically cut in half from the waist down, washed, cleaned, and posed by her killer. Residents who have since lived there have reported hearing strange noises, such as the dragging of heavy chains, heavy footsteps, and voices calling their name. It's actually a really nice looking house, but it is full of negative energy, and it is also believed that anyone who steps foot in this house will be cursed. So, you know what? I'm good at just admiring the architecture from like Google Maps. I don't even have to see it in real life. The Queen Mary ship creeps onto this list at number 9. I had to include this one on this list because people technically did live on this ship, and it is referred to as one of the most haunted ships in America. It was operated since the 1930s, but now it is permanently docked in Long Beach, California, and it is used as a hotel. As nice as this might sound, while guests on board will often experience sleepless nights, there have been a bunch of scary paranormal activities reported on this ship. Guests will say that they will hear creepy kid laughter in the middle of the night, or things will be flown across the room. And room B340 has been taken out of rotation after there's been numerous violent poltergeist activities. It's actually impossible to keep someone in that room for the entire night because they will just get scared away. For me, I would probably last a minute. Probably not even that long. Up next, number 8, we have the Stanley Warehouse. This is a notorious haunted house that has a long reputation of being one of the most haunted places in Orange County. One of the most talked about frightening ghosts that live here is the previous owner. During her golden years, she was unable to climb up the stairs, so after her death, she is known to appear in spirit on the staircase, blocking others from going up. Visitors have reported that they found it difficult or even impossible to get past her and go up the stairs. Oh, and let's not forget about the spirit of an old man who you can hear whispering nasty and offensive things while you sleep. And if you visit the house, you will be able to hear a baby crying upstairs, but when you go into the nursery, no one is there. That would freak me out. I think I would want to visit this house just to see if I can make it upstairs, but you'll never convince me to sleep there. I mean, I just value my life way too much, and I gotta find out what happens next on Bachelor in Paradise. Moving into number 7, we have the Battery Point Lighthouse. This is an iconic lighthouse located in Crescent City, California, and it was built back in 1856. There has been numerous reports of strange and creepy occurrences happening there. Lighthouse workers and guests say that they have heard what sounded like someone wearing large boots stomping around. There have also been reports of items moving, cold spots, and the feeling that someone was touching them when no one was even there. Apparently there are 3 ghosts that haunt this lighthouse, because one just isn't enough. No one seems to know who they are or why they are haunting this place. All I know for sure is that we should just board up the place and just leave it alone, just forget about it. Every now and again a visitor will feel someone tapping on their shoulder, or furniture will move by itself. I mean, that is definitely not okay, and definitely you don't want to be there on a stormy night. Bad things are said to happen there when it rains. The Whaley House haunts us in at number 6. This house was built on an old site where the public used to occur. So yeah, I would say this place is pretty damn haunted. Over the years, many descendants of the Whaley family lived and died in that house, and when the house was being restored, workers and visitors began to notice strange and mysterious sounds, sightings, smells, and encounters. A lot of people reported hearing scary noises and loud footsteps that left footprints. You can actually visit this house and take a tour, but I'd rather not. I'd rather spend my time at Disneyland, you know, where I know it's 100% safe and not too scary, or is it? This place is littered with scary ghosts, and a lot of unsettling things have happened there. I'm getting the chills just thinking about it, so I gotta move on. Let's move on, let's see what we have next. Well, you know what? The red house jumps into number 5 next on our list. This is an old abandoned house that is occupied by a vengeful spirit. Back in the beginning of the 20th century, an engaged couple used to live here. Well, on the night before their wedding, they had a huge fight, and the man pushed his fiancée down the stairs. She died, and he buried her in the backyard. Well, today, she has been seen haunting the house and nearby businesses. People have reported that she is wearing her wedding dress that is covered in blood. Is it her own blood? And local legends say that if you step in front of her, she'll rush forward and drag you to her gravesite, and you will never be seen again. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna be visiting this creepy thing anytime soon, or any of these haunted houses on this list. I'm just not brave enough. Like I told you, I hear wind and I run. I see something just a bit bigger than a chihuahua and I run. Okay, the Glen Tavern Inn creeps us in at number 4. This house was built in 1911, but don't be fooled by its beautiful exterior. This house has a very ugly past. Back during the Prohibition, they converted the 3rd floor into a speakeasy and gambling den. And one of the most infamous rooms is room 307, which is said to be haunted by 2 ghosts. The amount of paranormal activity here is very high. Visitors said that they saw children running through the halls, and some say that they've seen an angry man and a one-eyed female. There are also reports of the spirits playing the piano in the middle of the night, and others have said that their stuff was stolen. There have also been a lot of deaths that have occurred in this room. A cowboy was shot and a woman was. So needless to say, this place has a lot of angry and vengeful spirits. Las Coches Adobe makes it onto this list at number 3. This might be one of the most terrifying places in California, and you know what's even more terrifying? The fact that I probably pronounced it wrong. This building is located on an old mine site, however it was covered up because on one horrific day, an accident occurred in the mine and about 30 workers were trapped inside. All of them lost their lives, so it's no wonder that this place is haunted. Locals and visitors have said that they heard the screams of the trapped miners echoing from the property, and there are also numerous reports of a lady in black and a male phantom walking around the grounds. Some people have even said that they've seen the ghost of a hanging man from a tree. And then we have the dark force. Locals say that this force is strong enough to throw you to the ground, and then you can feel heavy footsteps walking on your back, preventing you from getting up. There are a bunch of people who have said that they will never step foot in this place again, and I'm one of them. I don't blame them. Number 2, we have the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose. Since it was built in 1884, the mansion is said to be haunted by ghosts who were. Construction began in 1884 and never stopped until the owner died in 1992. The owner believed that her house was haunted by victims, and the only way to keep them quiet was to keep on building. The building was opened by the public in 1923, and the staff and the visitors have reported seeing mischievous spirits who liked to torment them. So yeah, don't be fooled by this beautiful house, because it is actually full of ugly surprises and scary ghosts lurking in every corner. But for those of you guys who are either brave or really naive, well, you can actually take a tour there and see all of the ghosts and scary paranormal activities for yourself. Alcatraz tops this list at number 1. Prisons are often the site of restless spirits and hauntings, and Alcatraz is no exception to that. This prison was the site of violent activities, and it housed some of the most dangerous criminals in the world. Alcatraz is actually a breeding ground for the paranormal. One of the most feared presence on the island is known as the Thing. This creepy spirit has red glowing eyes, and it has been recently seen by visitors and also by the prison staff when Alcatraz was in operation. Other common reportings are of creepy voices, sobbing, screaming, and the banging of cell doors. Some have even said that they felt as if they were being touched, felt cold, and they even had an emotional outburst of either sadness or anger just out of nowhere.
Coming in at number 9 is alien blood. I actually read about this story a few years ago and I didn't realize how much of a lasting impact it left on California, but evidently I guess it did. Back in 1984 at Riverside General Hospital, a woman called Gloria Ramirez was admitted to the ER to have her blood drawn. But as soon as it was drawn, the foulest smell filled the room and her skin started becoming oilier and oilier. Then, like flies, the medical staff started dropping, half started passing out, while the other half lost complete control of their limbs. 5 members ended up being hospitalized and 1 even spent 2 weeks in intensive care. The weird occurrence affected over 24 members of staff, which left a skeleton crew to try and save her life. They failed and she died 40 minutes later. Until this day, no one has any idea what happened or what it was about her blood that took down 23 people. They dub it the legend of the alien blood that poisoned the hospital. And to me, I feel like science has a lot of answers for a lot of things, but when something comes up that they can't answer and nearly 40 years later they still can't answer it, that's worrying. At number 8 we have the lady in white, because every urban legend video would not be complete without at least one ghostly lady wearing white. Hailed as one of the most famous Californian urban legends, the legend is about the thing that probably makes California famous, the Hollywood sign. The sign that has been the backdrop of countless Instagrams and movies and is said to be haunted by Peg Entwistle, a famous actress from the early 1900s. That's so Hollywood, isn't it? An actress haunting the sign. It came full circle almost. Anyway, the legend goes like this. After an excruciatingly harsh review of one of her movies, one people dubbed a career-ending review, she decided she couldn't take the thought of her career ending, and so she decided to instead. She climbed to the top of the H in the sign and threw. So based on that, many people claim a lady in white can be seen hiking in the off-limits area near the sign around the place she killed herself. But if you find yourself up there and are hoping to see a beautiful actress, you'd be quite wrong. What appears is an eerie woman with hollowed out eyes and a skeletal face. If she finds you there alone, she can influence you to follow in her footsteps and end as well. In the century that followed her, many cases have been reported in the area, and in 2012 police even found a man's body parts and decapitated head right where she. Filling our number 7 slot is the prop of New Pike. So Elmer McCurdy was a famously notorious outlaw who died in the early 1900s. In 1911, his embalmed corpse became a sideshow act through Texas for people who wanted to come and gawk at the criminal and his displayed body. Or rather, his body traveled all over America, eventually landing itself in Long Beach, California. There, his body was mistaken for a prop and was hung in a fun house at New Pike Amusement Park. The truth was only discovered in 1976 when a film crew tried to adjust him and ended up dislodging his arm. Imagine going into that funhouse as a kid expecting mildly scary props and then coming face to face with a real corpse. I'd never go to an amusement park again. Legit I wouldn't. Now at number 6 is Old Stage Road. Now Old Stage Road is located in Salinas and it's been the site of horrible deaths, related deaths was even located there during the wartime. So due to all that death, countless ghosts and spirits do haunt the road. But this specific story comes from Redditor Moonriver7811, who said his aunt told him a story of when she was young and pregnant. Her and her husband decided to take some back roads as a shortcut and ended up on Old Stage Road. She was looking out the window for a while and she suddenly saw a woman. The woman was keeping pace with the car and just turned her head to look at his aunt, and what she saw scarred her for life. The skin of the woman was so pale it looked almost transparent. Her hair was like white hay. She seemed almost 100 years old. But it wasn't even her appearance that freaked his aunt out, it was the hatred and anger she could see in her eyes. The uncle stepped on the gas and they managed to get rid of her. And the user decided after hearing the story he should also go to the road as well with his friends at 3 AM drunk. The friends went there and stopped near Hangman's Tree and decided to walk on the road, not stay inside the safety of their car. Very stupid mistake, kids. One of the friends decided to pee on the tree, douchebag move, and it's not surprising that off spirits after that. They got back into the car and were switching between CDs when they heard a loud "Get Out" on the radio. After hearing it and realizing it was none of them, they drove for their lives. Half a mile later, one of the friends in the back who had been asleep the whole time screamed, saying she'd had the worst nightmare. She never remembered going back into the car and said she was walking down the street and turned around and saw that the car wasn't there anymore. All of a sudden, an old lady with rotten teeth and claws tried to bite her, and that's when she woke up. Despite the road being old as hell, still continue to happen on and around it. Coming in at number 5 is Bigfoot. It's like the most well-known urban legend of all time. I'd argue it was maybe even the first one. But anyway, coming in second to Washington, California has the most reported Bigfoot sightings in the US. The creature, which is said to be a giant hairy human ape creature of sorts, is said to live in the wilderness. Yosemite National Park is said to be the most haunted national park in America because it was Bigfoot's first home. Campers have apparently seen it wander into their camps, to which of course they've screamed and ran away. The weirder part is that Bigfoot has been said to scream louder and run too, which is a bit cute, I'm not gonna lie. In 1962 on Mount Shasta, a woman claimed to have seen Bigfoot give birth, which A, I didn't even know it was a female, and B, now we have a mini Bigfoot on our hands. But I guess that was nearly 80 years ago, so it's probably adult Bigfoot now. Either way, I honestly feel like it's a harmless creature, so why don't we just leave the poor thing alone? It's not harming anyone. I mean, it hasn't harmed anyone yet. At number 4 are the Gates of Hell. A deserted road in Antioch called Empire Mine Road has a gate on its side that locals call the Gates of Hell. And at first glance it honestly looks like a rundown graffitied gate, and most people wouldn't even notice it driving by, but driving by won't do anything to you. It's crossing in the gates that could hurt you. The first legend about the gates is about an insane asylum that it used to be the entrance to. And it was one of those horror movie asylums. I'm talking straitjackets, lobotomies, shock treatments, the whole shebang. Because of that, many believe the ghosts of deceased patients stalk the area, and some even suffer from the same illness that they had in real life. And the spirits around asylums are usually angrier than ones found elsewhere, and if you cross the gate you could very well be attacked by one of the ghosts. One group of explorers felt rocks being pelted at them, and when they got back into their car they felt a giant creature leap onto the hood. The second legend is that it was a slaughterhouse that sat near the gates, and that the spirits haunting it are of the animals. But the slaughterhouse was also home to a horrific happened in 1995. A man came running and screaming out of the slaughterhouse, head to toe dripping in blood, claiming his girlfriend had before medics could get to him, he died. So there is a lot of bad energy radiating around this gate. Filling our number 3 slot is the statue. A girl named Jessica was babysitting for a rich family in California, so you can well imagine that the house was massive with rooms upon rooms inside. During the night in question, the parents went out for a movie, and so the dad told Jessica once the kids are asleep, she could go watch TV in the living room. And that wasn't a nice move so she could be entertained, it was so she wouldn't wander and snoop around the house. The kids go to bed and Jessica starts watching TV. I mean, she tries watching it but can't ignore the clown statue in the corner of the room. Even though she found the statue a bit out of place in line with the other decor, she let it go, but after a while it started freaking her out so much that she had to call the dad. She asked him if she could switch rooms because the clown statue was freaking her out. The father replied saying get the kids and leave the house and call the police. She started asking him why, but he told her to just shut up and do it now. She ended up getting the kids and going to the neighbors and calling the police. But she later ended up calling the dad. He said they didn't have a clown statue and that the children had been complaining of a clown watching them sleep, but they assumed it was just a nightmare. Listen to your kids, people, listen to your kids. It's so funny, I've heard so many variations of this legend, but I had no idea it originated in California. And finally, at number 1 are the witches. East Bay's Black Diamond Mines are one of the scariest places in California. At the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, the area was a thriving coal mining community, and the people who lived there are still buried in the Rose Hill Cemetery. There are so many ghost stories surrounding the mines, but the most popular one is a story of Sarah Norton and Mary. Sarah was a widow who married Noah Norton, and it was widely known that she was a witch. One day her services were called for in the town of Clayton, but on the way there she was thrown out of her buggy and in life, she was a very religious, pious woman who emphasized how she didn't want a funeral, yet the locals of Somerville felt she was owed one. The day of her funeral, a terrible storm hit the town and it was delayed. The following day, another storm hit, but this time the town's livestock also came charging through it. The townspeople realized that this all could have been Sarah's spirit telling them she didn't want a funeral under any circumstances. Since then, her ghost has been seen floating around town, but mostly lurking in Rose Hill Cemetery. Now on to Mary. It was a very common name back then, as you can well imagine, so we don't know what her last name was, but her occupation was being a nanny. But strangely enough, every single child she cared for ended up dying, and so the town accused her of witchcraft. And usually in these witchcraft cases an innocent person is accused, but with Mary they actually found evidence of her sorcery rituals. She was hung soon after and is said to be seen near the mines wearing full white. Honestly, what is it with ghosts and wearing white? Like, is it symbolism? What does it mean? Someone tell me.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Flying Monkeys of Napa Valley. I've always wanted to visit the Napa Valley because wine. I love wine. People across the world have probably heard or even tasted the Californian wine made here, but most of you probably will never have heard of rebobs, legendary flying monkeys, or robots, or something in between. They are most frequently sighted around Patrick Road outside of Napa itself. Now, according to local law, the rebobs were made by a mad scientist who tried to combine humans with monkeys, although some believe that they're robots created by the government as a distraction from a doomsday bunker they were building nearby. Some say the monkeys hunt teenagers craving young flesh to satisfy their appetites. All pretty wild theories. Coming into number 9, we have the Witch of the Black Diamond Mines. It is said that the Black Diamond Mines of the Mount Diablo coalfield is home to the ghost of a girl named Mary. It seems in the 1870s Mary was a nanny, but several of the children that she cared for died of illnesses or completely unknown causes. Mary was then accused of being a witch by the mining community, who with little semblance of a trial. The town did claim that they found evidence of sorcery rituals at her home, but who knows back then? Honestly, they just like burn the witches, except they hung her. What locals do know is that her spirit still haunts the mine to this day, and it is said to be angry. Mary wants revenge, and I kind of understand. Coming into number 8, we have the Smoke of the Claremont. Out in Berkeley, California, there is an old historic hotel called the Claremont. The original hotel was built in the 1800s, but burnt down as a result of a fire. 10 years later, a new Claremont was built and opened. Great, except the smell of smoke has never left. It seems that smoky fragrances waft through the halls late at night. Oh, and if you travel to the 4th floor, you may or may not meet one of the victims of the fire, a little girl who particularly likes to hang out in room 422. Coming into number 7, we have the San Diego Chulapa. It seems that San Diego may be home to a creature in the ilk of the Chupacabra, Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, or the Abominable Snowman. I really like the word abominable. Abominable. Chulapa is said to be a creature that many say they've heard crying late at night. It's said that the beast stalks San Diego and feeds off the weak, including any children it can sink its teeth into, or homeless people unlucky enough to encounter the menace. 30 mysterious deaths seem to have been blamed on the creature. Although that being said, in February 2012, San Diego residents breathed a sigh of relief as they thought that the monster had washed up dead on Mission Beach. Have a little look at the pictures and tell me what you think. Honestly, I hope that there aren't any baby chulapas out there around willing to continue mummy or daddy's work, because that looks horrible. Abominable. Coming in at number 6, we have the Boy of Grouse Lake. I would love to go to Yosemite National Park and do some hiking, but of course the sprawling 3,000 square kilometer park is filled with myths and legends. Ever since the mid-1800s, reports of a wailing sound have been noted around Grouse Lake. It seems that in 1857, Yosemite's first park ranger Galen Clark heard the cries and went to investigate. It seems that Clark kept hearing the noises and thought that it may well be a dog or an animal, so decided to ask a local First Nations tribe if they had lost a dog or any member of livestock. Legend has it that they responded to tell him that actually it was no dog, and under no circumstances should he go near the water. Why? Well, it was haunted by a First Nations boy who had fallen in and to this day, he is said to call out to those who pass by, but if anyone goes into the water to help him or investigate, he will grab their feet and pull them into the lake until they drown, just like he did. Coming into number 5, we have Toys R Us of Sunnyvale. I feel like Toys R Us had bigger issues than a Californian branch store haunting, what with its spate of closures, but nonetheless, the Sunnyvale, California location is said to be haunted by a poltergeist. Poltergeist in a kid's shop, honestly, I can't think of anything worse. I actually used to work in a massive toy shop in London as a princess, long story, but sometimes we would do sleepovers for kids overnight, and there really is nothing scarier than a toy shop during the darkness, because your imagination kind of runs wild with all of the scenarios in which the toys could come to life and, like, I don't know, bite your ankles. Either way, scary, right? I think it's scary, but just ask the night staff here at this Toys R Us. Now, legend has it that the poltergeist came about after kids broke into the store and snatched an Ouija board off the shelves, holding an impromptu seance and accidentally unleashing a spirit. Spooky. Coming into number 4, we have the albinos of Hicks Road. It seems that Hicks Road in San Jose is a strange place with an even stranger legend attached to it. Locals believe that the road, which runs between Los Gatos and Twin Creeks, is haunted not by ghosts but by so-called hostile albinos. Rumours of the clan began circulating in the 1970s, and it is said that they are violent to passers-by and will stop cars and attack people with improvised weapons. There aren't accounts of them murdering anyone, just generally displaying hostility and creepy behaviour. The legend says that they eat roadkill, and they have been spotted dragging away dead deer into the hills. Coming into number 3, we have Haunted Disneyland. Disneyland California opened in 1955 in Anaheim. Actually went twice with Landon and Danny 2 and 3 years ago. Here's a picture of us along with Michael McCrudden and Charlotte Dobre of I.O. We're having a lovely time. It's a good time. There are balloons. Despite it being the Magic Kingdom, the park is filled with urban legends. The most enduring is that actually Disneyland is haunted by the ghost of none other than Walt Disney himself, who is said to stalk the park at night. He's also said to regularly visit his old apartment above the fire station on Main Street. It is also said that the It's a Small World ride is haunted, with the dolls moving and switching places with others. Some say that the haunted house actually is haunted, not by one of the ghosts that it looks like are kind of there, but by a little boy. Apparently his ashes were scattered or something along those lines. Others say that the Secret Club 33 is the Illuminati headquarters. Honestly, Disneyland is so filled with urban legends, we've made a whole video about it, so you should check that out. Coming into number 2, we have the legend of the Black Dahlia. The death of Elizabeth Short was no legend, it actually happened. In 1947, the budding 23-year-old starlet was found cut in half and severely mutilated. Her killer had drained her blood and scrubbed her body clean and then laid it out meticulously. The case totally stumped the LAPD, with the lead investigator Brian Carr saying, "I just can't imagine someone doing that to another human being." The murder was front-page news for months, and Elizabeth's connection with Hollywood made it glamorous in a very macabre way. The killer was never found, and her death is one of the oldest cold cases in LA. It was after she died that the rumours and the legends were born. Some say she was a high-class escort killed by a lover. Some say she was involved with a satanic cult, and various news outlets had elaborated opinions on what had happened to her body. I guess we can't really go into it too much, but some think that she was covered in cigarette burns, and others say they think that she was forced to eat her own feces. Ugh. Somehow she was dubbed the Black Dahlia, and books were written about her. A 2006 movie was made about her, starring Scarlett Johansson and Mia Kirshner. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the cursed Hotel Cecil. Some say that all 600 rooms of the Cecil Hotel are cursed. The building has now been rebranded the Stay on Main to avoid associations with its dubious past. The Black Dahlia herself was said to have drunk at the hotel before she met her grisly demise. There is a whole Wikipedia page about deaths and violence at the Cecil Hotel, and on a quick glance I count 16 grisly incidents, and those are just the reported ones. Many of the stories involve suicide by jumping from the top of the building, others involve poison. The hotel was also said to be the home of serial killers Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger. The hotel made headlines in 2013 when a Canadian tourist, Elisa Lam, went missing after staying there. A video was posted of her from an elevator security camera by police, as this was the last time she was seen alive. Now the video is actually very scary to watch. She's seen acting exceptionally strangely, very strangely indeed. She presses a number of the buttons in the elevator and the doors fail to close. She's seen peering out of the elevator and looking really scared. She's then seen trying to hide in the corner. She then exits the elevator and seems to be pleading with someone invisible outside of the door. The footage ends with her walking out of shot and the elevator door opening and closing a number of times. On the 19th of February, her body was found by hotel maintenance workers who had come to investigate issues with the hotel water pressure. Now it seems that she was dead in the water tank and had been dead for weeks. The water tank was used for drinking and bathing water for other hotel guests. So, bleh. What happened to Alyssa, and is the hotel cursed? I'm gonna go with, I don't know, it's Sounds like it.
In at number 10, this creepy statue is located at the entrance of Stowe Lake. It was built in 1914 to honor the pioneer women of the Old West, and it was placed in Golden Gate Park in the 40s. But this isn't a regular statue. There are a ton of rumors about the statue being able to move on its own, something that it shouldn't be able to do. Witnesses have said that they can see the woman's head move from side to side as if she was looking for something. Maybe she's looking for her missing child. It is also said that she will change her facial expressions, and sometimes she'll distort her face to look like a hideous monster. Sounds like I'll be staying away from the statue. There are also a lot of stories about seeing a phantom shape of a third child statue, but when you go closer to it, it just disappears. Oh, and you can also hear the sounds of evil children laughing if you get too close, so be warned. The tunnels of Chinatown brings us to number 9. Apparently there are a ton of secret tunnels buried deep under Chinatown, and residents of Chinatown use them to get to their hidden opium dens and gambling rooms without being caught. There's been a ton of speculation that these tunnels were once a really shady tourist attraction, while others still say that it's used for illegal activity. But due to an earthquake, it is now believed that these tunnels are now blocked off by fallen debris. But who knows, maybe someone found a way in, so we never know what might be lurking inside of these tunnels. Mary Ellen Pleasant haunts us in at number 8. She was a former came to San Francisco in 1899. Eventually she was able to open up her own restaurant where she would pick up stock tips from wealthy businessmen who ate there. She was so clever that she was able to use these stock tips to make herself rich. She built a very nice mansion on Octavia Street where she lived with her business partner and his wife. But here's where things got ugly. She was accused of pushing her business partner down the stairs and she was pressured to move out of the city, and she quickly lost all of her savings and died a few years later. I mean, talk about bad karma. So now it is said that her spirit haunts the Memorial Park on Octavia and Bush Street. And if you stand on the plaque and politely make a wish, it will be granted. But beware, Mary Ellen Pleasant will throw rocks at your head if you don't show her the proper respect. So make sure when you're making a wish, give some respect. The Pinecrest Diner brings us to number 7. This restaurant sits on the corner of Mason and Gary, and there's a sign that reads Best Breakfast in San Francisco. Okay, I couldn't vouch for the food there because I've never been. I've been to San Francisco many times, but if you like your eggs poached, then you should probably never eat there. And that's because this restaurant refuses to make it because of an urban legend that has been circulating around. Apparently a murder took place at this diner in 1997. The cook the waitress, and rumors has it that earlier that day, the waitress yelled at the cook for making poached eggs when they aren't even on the menu. According to the legend, the chef was so angry that when he came into work the next morning, he came in with a The cook never admitted that the eggs were the cause of his murdering rampage, but the restaurant refuses to serve them to this day. Up next, number 6, we have the Golden Gate Park Ghost. It is said that if you drive your car through the Golden Gate Park at night, and if you do it with your headlights off, a police officer will pull you over and give you a ticket. However, when you go to pay for the ticket, it will be invalid because the police officer doesn't actually exist. According to the legend, this cop lost his life in the line of duty in this park, but his spirit is still on duty. He roams around the park and approaches people who have committed traffic violations. So even though this is probably just an urban legend, a lot of people in this area said that they've run into him. So it's gotta be real, right? So the next time you find yourself driving in Golden Gate Park at night, you might want to obey by the traffic laws just in case. Or you might be pulled over by this phantom police officer. Golden Gate Bridge moves on to this list at number 5. Since 1937, more than 1,500 have occurred on the Golden Gate Bridge. Police have tried to prevent from happening on this bridge, and they did this by closing pedestrian access after 6:30, and they've even assigned officers to patrol the walkway. But the tormented souls of the dead jumpers continue to haunt this bridge even to this day. It is said that on dark, foggy nights, the spirit can be seen roaming along the walkways while he's searching for their next victim. Witnesses have reported hearing screams and feeling pulled towards the edge of the bridge. Alcatraz Prison brings us to number 4. I've been there and it's very airy. Like, you hear a lot of noises. It's it's for sure haunted. Well, given the amount of prisoners who spent many years on this lonely, cruel island, there are a ton of angry spirits that are haunting this old prison, and I might be able to attest by that. There are reports of shadowy figures, weird mist, cold spots, and there are a lot of noises in the prison as well. If you visit the prison, you'll hear moaning, sobbing, and screams for help. They can even move objects, and if you're unlucky, you might even feel one of them brush past you. It is also said that you will feel cold chills and feel like something bad is going to happen. And if you value your life, you should never visit 14D. I've done it and it is terrifying. And that's because an angry spirit is trapped inside of the cell, and if it gets a hold of you, you'll probably never make it out alive. I was able to meet one of the officers who were actually active during the Alcatraz days. Brings us to number 2. On the west side of San Francisco, on the south side of San Francisco, there are stone ruins that have crumbling stairs and old buildings that are said to be incredibly haunted. The Saturo baths are said to be cursed, and this belief is still perpetrated today. Those brave enough to enter the cave have reported seeing a strange creature hiding in the cave. There are scratch marks on the walls, piles of animal carcasses, and bones left behind. You can even hear unexplained noises and footsteps echoing throughout the tunnel. And apparently this creature doesn't look like it's from Earth. If that wasn't enough, another urban legend says that this cave was the place where people would perform dark satanic rituals that involved human sacrifices. I don't know about you guys, but I'm thinking that we should close off this tunnel and never speak of it ever again. The Lady of the Stowe Lake tops this list at number 1. This lake can be found in Golden Gate Park, and this urban legend is about a mother who took her baby to the park in a stroller in the early 1900s. Well, she stopped at a park bench to rest, and she began chatting to another woman. But she didn't realize that the stroller started to roll away and it crashed into the lake. Once she realized that her baby was gone, she began to panic as she frantically searched for her baby. The mother was last seen going into the lake, so those people who were brave enough to visit the park at night might run into this devastated mother who is still searching for her baby today. It is said that she now haunts this lake and she will terrorize people into helping her search for her baby. But be careful, she might even try to pull you into the water herself to try to help search underneath the water for her baby.
Starting us off at number 10 are satanic symbols. Back in 2013, a couple named Janine and AJ moved into a quaint and sweet little house in Springfield, Louisiana. They were so excited to get the house and were amazed at the cheap price. But soon after they moved in, it quickly became apparent as to why the price may have been so low. Things started off small, as it usually does, with their radio turning on all by itself or seeing the lights flicker independently, but soon enough they overheard their son speaking to who he described as an imaginary friend late at night, and they heard a strange voice threaten to begin hurting Janine. Before long, Janine was being assaulted by the unseen presence, waking up to find bruises and scratches, and would often get pushed around by the demon in the middle of the day. She began noticing that the rosaries she hung were spinning in the house, plaster was falling from the ceiling and missing her by mere inches, and she began to seriously fear for her life. One day, her and her husband decided to leave out a tape recorder to see if they could get any proof of the demon occupying their house, and sure enough, when they went to check up on it the next day, they captured a growling sound and the demon saying, "She will die." But the last straw was when they moved a rug in one of the rooms, only to discover that the floor had been covered entirely in satanic symbols. This led them to believe that once upon a time the house had been used by a satanic cult that had likely brought the horrific demon that was taunting them into our world. Needless to say, they packed up everything and got the out of there. Next up at number 9 is Sarah Winchester's mansion. As the story goes, in 1881, Sarah lost her husband to tuberculosis, and in her grief sought out a spiritualist in hopes they could help her contact her husband to help her overcome this tragedy. But instead of getting the solace and closure she was looking for, she received an ominous warning that sent her off the deep end. You see, her late husband's family had created the notorious Winchester rifle that became known as the gun that won the West. What that meant was that thousands thousands had died due to this creation of the gun, so when they reached her late husband in the beyond, he warned Sarah that all their lives' tragedies were a result of the blood money earned from the evil weapon. Next, he explained that spirits were coming after her with a vengeance and she needed to build a home for herself to protect against them. But there was one catch. She could never stop building. If she stopped construction, she would die. Sarah took this omen incredibly seriously and began construction on her property immediately, turning her house into a topsy-turvy maze-like mansion, believing it would confuse any spirits who tried to enter and torture her. There are staircases that lead to nowhere, trapdoors, skylights on the floor, doors that open to walls, and even a door that opens to a second-story drop. With all that, it's said that ghosts really did get trapped inside and now, unable to leave, get madder and madder with each passing day. Many have reported seeing apparitions, voices, and footsteps while visiting. Next up at number 8 is a demon mirror. It's not just homes that demons can allegedly occupy, but they're also a big fan of inanimate objects. In this case, a mirror. According to London roommates Joseph and Sotiris, they scored a free antique mirror from their landlord a few years ago. The friends were young and didn't have much money, so they were just happy to get a free piece of furniture. But after bringing it into their home, strange things started happening, and they soon discovered it had to be connected to the new mirror. The roommates began suffering intense and lucid nightmares and would wake up with brutal stabbing pains all over their body, along with scratch marks. Not only that, they would frequently wake up to find their entire house was practically turned upside down in a complete pigsty, almost as if they had been robbed. Soon enough, they were seeing shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their house and saw glimpses of darkness in the mirror, along with orbs of light appearing out of nowhere in the room. Eventually, they decided to get rid of the mirror and they landed on selling it on eBay with plenty of warning about what to expect. I have to say I am worried for whoever bought it from them. If it were me, I would have just destroyed it. Next up at number 7 is a Ouija board. I don't know who decided to let Ouija boards become such an easily accessible item available to purchase at Walmart, because I don't think I have ever heard of it going well for anyone. One of these such stories is that of Tracy and Kieran Fry from South Wales. They became huge names in the British tabloids back in 2015 after they claimed that beginning on Halloween night, 3 incubus demons made their way into their home and began terrorizing them both physically and mentally every night for months. But they really got afraid after their son reported the demon visiting him, threatening to slit both Tracy and Kieran's throats in their sleep. And not long after that, they claimed to have witnessed the apparition in the light of day and even snapped a picture of the demon for the paper. The couple believed that the evil spirits managed to use their Ouija board as a vehicle to infest their home, which they had apparently used previously in an attempt to contact the dead. Eventually, the torture got so bad that they contacted a paranormal investigator as well as a vicar to try and rid the demons of their home, but allegedly only 2 of the entities were able to be squashed, and according to the couple, the demon never actually left and continues to haunt them to this day. Coming in at number 6 is Deanna Simpson. After years of being haunted by several demonic entities in her home, Deanna decided to reach out to reporters to share her story. Although the details have never been confirmed, Deanna claims that the origin of the demons in her home come from a series of gruesome deaths that occurred on the property, and she believes that the spirits are angry and unable to move on from their deaths. Eventually, things got so bad that in 2014, a film crew from Fox 43 arrived to see for themselves if the rumors were true, and what they saw changed their lives forever. As soon as they entered, they knew that Deanna had been telling the truth about the entities in her home. One of the cameramen, Nick Petrillo, said he felt burning all over his hands whenever he tried filming inside the house, and the only thing that made it go away was the holy water that Deanna poured over the area. While the crew was there, she went into more detail about her experience with the demons, explaining she believed it was multiple evil spirits haunting her, and that over the years they frequently tortured both her and her husband, physically and mentally, and she was beginning to lose hope about a better better life. Deanna claims that she captured the shadowy figures on film, although this has never been confirmed. Still, the camera crew seem to be quite on board with her experience. Coming in at number 5 is The Cage. During the witch trial era of Essex, this house was used as a prison for women accused of such sinful acts. During the 16th century, it housed 12 accused witches, one of which was the famous Ursula Kemp, who was tragically hanged for her so-called witchy ways. Whether that is all a coincidence or not is up for debate, but according to the 2004 owner, Vanessa Mitchell, it is a terrifying haunted home filled with deep-seated evil. The demons wasted no time introducing themselves to Vanessa. She claims that the first night in the house, she saw a shadowy figure in the corner and knew right away that something was very, very wrong. Shortly after, she began to feel harassed by the entity, as it would do things like push her when she was home alone, smack her hard enough to leave bruises, and even shoved Vanessa down the stairs. Not only that, she began seeing strange things. Blood stains started showing up on her floors all the time, and objects began launching themselves across the room. Whatever it was, it did not want her there. In an interview, she states that during her 3-year time living in the cage, she witnessed 4 ghosts, 2 men and 1 woman, as well as a horrifying goat demon, which she claims to have captured on camera. Thankfully, she got out alive, but the house remains a notorious spot in Essex, frequented by paranormal enthusiasts hoping to catch a glimpse of the evil entity that nearly killed Vanessa. Next up at number 4 is the Smurl House. Between the years of 1974 to 1989, the Smurl family was subjected to some incredibly terrifying hauntings in their Pennsylvania home. Over the 15 years they lived here, Jack and Janet Smurl, along with the rest of the family members, reported that their TV burst into flames, their toilets would flush themselves, and that various electronics would stop working for no reason at all. But it was at night that the family got truly terrified. They would hear the loud footsteps despite there never being an intruder, and a nauseating smell always filled the house, but only ever at night. Soon enough, things got even scarier. They began finding what appeared to be claw marks all over the bathroom, and then in 1985, a full-bodied apparition began haunting the halls and hovering over them while they were sleeping. The family named her Old Hag, and it seems that after a while the demon got bored of just watching the couple sleep, so it began harassing them, and according to Janet, would routinely commit SA on both her and her husband. That was the final straw for the couple, and so they decided to bring in a priest to exorcise the demon out, but even after 50 exorcisms, the entity refused to tighten its grip. So, fearing for their lives, the family finally moved out in 1989 and never looked back. Next up at number 3 is Latoya Ammons. When Latoya Ammons moved into her quaint home in Gary, Indiana in 2011, she had no clue what was in store for her and her family. According to Latoya, things got bad quickly. The first troubling phenomenon occurred when a huge swarm of large black flies started circling the family's screened-in porch and only seemed to be multiplying. These flies were relentless, even staying through the winter, and as soon as they arrived, so did the sounds of strange footsteps at night. Then one day Latoya saw a shadowy figure walk across her living room and she began to panic. Something evil was in her home. It all came to a head after Latoya witnessed her unconscious 12-year-old levitating above her bed at 2 a.m. So she contacted some clairvoyants to try and rid whatever evil spirit was living in the home. According to the paranormal experts, Latoya's home was haunted by an astonishing 200 demons and was indeed a very dangerous place for her and her family to be living. Latoya decided the best course of action was to undergo exorcisms to rid themselves of anything the demons could have placed on them and flee their home. All I can say is thank God they got out alive. Coming in at number 2 is the Sally House. Built in the 19th century, this haunted Kansas home is named after the ghost that is believed to roam its halls. The haunted house came into light back in 1992 when owners Tony and Deborah Pickman came forward saying that they began experiencing very strange things in their home after the birth of their daughter. What was once a completely normal home was suddenly family infested by a demonic entity, covering the couple in scratch marks, cuts, and bruises nearly every day, and anyone else who visited the house received the same treatment. Soon, things only got worse. They were seeing full apparitions of the demons, watching objects float around their house, and hearing strange demonic noises at all hours of the day. It got so bad they contacted investigators who attempted to reach the spirits and reason with them, but the investigators were similarly tortured by whatever it was that was in their home. Eventually they came to realize that Sally, the house's most active ghost, had died here when she was young from a botched appendectomy, and despite what they initially thought of her, she was not the demon herself. Instead, she had somehow become a magnet for dark entities to pass through, almost like a portal for demons to enter their house, and it was them who was making their lives a living hell. By 1994, they had enough and moved out of the horrible house, but have since maintained a website dedicated to their experience there. And last up in our number 1 spot today is Marie and Chris. Marie and Chris had a blended family, each with kids from previous marriages, and lived a very happy life. Until they decided to use a Ouija board to contact Chris's son from the dead. Quickly after beginning, they were contacted by an entity claiming to be Chris's son, but in fact, it was not his son, it was a demon masquerading as him. The demon called itself Frank and began detailing its desire to possess Julie, one of Mary's daughters who had cerebral palsy. This was enough for the couple to know that things were very wrong, and they quickly closed the board and ended the seance. But unbeknownst to them, they had opened a door they couldn't close. The family began being taunted by the entity Frank, and so Chris, thinking it would banish the spirit, decided to burn the Ouija board, but all it did was make Frank angrier and stronger. He began appearing in Mary's dreams, continuing to threaten the life of Julie, to the point where Mary was too afraid to even sleep, fearing it would only be the tortures of the demon all night. The family began seeing faces in the walls at night, waking up with scratches and bruises, and eventually decided to contact a professional. When the investigator arrived, he went to where the spirit was most active and sprinkled talc powder all over the floor there. To everyone's shock the next day, the name Julie had been scrawled into the powder on the floor. At that point, the family decided the only thing to do was to reach out to a Catholic priest for an exorcism. The priest eventually managed to banish Frank, but not before he possessed poor Julie for several hours. Moral of the story? Don't mess with Ouija boards.